again, and welcome back to Book Nerd TV. For today's video, I have 4 books that have at least 2 things in common. First thing that they all have in common is that they are all nonfiction books. The second thing they have in common is that they're all written by women. It's a happy accident. I didn't plan it. It just kind of ended up being this way. I noticed that when I was gathering the books together that they were all written by women and that they were all nonfiction. So it was pretty cool. I purchased these books from Thrift Books about a month or so ago, and I just hadn't had a chance to kind of haul them and show you guys what they are. So that's the purpose of today's video. The first book is You Can't Touch My Hair by Phoebe Robinson. And Phoebe Robinson is half of the Two Dope Queens podcast that you can catch basically anywhere you can get your podcast. I've been listening to it in the past. Very funny show. She also has a podcast called So Many White Guys, where she does that podcast by herself. Very entertaining, very funny, and so I like her. I like her brand of humor. She's very funny to me. You Can't Touch My Hair is a memoir of sorts for Phoebe Robinson, and it just kind of goes into some of the things that she runs across kind of in her daily life, because not only is she a podcaster, she is also a working comedian in New York, and it's a very hard town, as I understand it, to be a comedian, to be a working comedian, to even be a successful comedian, and she's managed to do all of those things. And so this book just kind of details some of the things that she's run across being a young black lady working in such a competitive sort of dog-eat-dog world of comedy in New York. Again, I enjoy her podcast, her single podcast, So Many White Guys, and of course, Two Dope Queens that she does with Jessica Williams, who is also very funny, hilarious. I just loved her when she was on The Daily Show. I kind of miss her from that show, but I also enjoy the things that she has done subsequent to her stint at Daily Show. I haven't read You Can't Touch My Hair yet, but this is one of the books that I think I'm going to talk about maybe in February or March. It just depends on, because apparently I've got a theme going here. And so I think I'm going to include this book in one of my themed arcs here. So just look forward to that. The next book that I purchased recently is The Misadventures of an Awkward Black Girl. Now, Issa Rae is the darling of everyone, everywhere, for all of the reasons, as she should be. She is just hilarious. I first ran across Issa Rae when she was doing literally the YouTube series, Misadventures of an Awkward Black Girl, and they were hilarious. She was hilarious. She is a decade or two younger than I am. I'm sort of leading edge Gen X. And she's definitely millennial. I think she's millennial. Anyway, but no hate or anything. Her comedy is a little younger than me, but still relatable and universal, I feel. And so I loved the YouTube series. I haven't taken the opportunity to watch Insecure because I really don't have HBO because that's, I'm cut the cable, all that kind of stuff like that. But from what I understand from all of the Twitter conversation that occurs every time there is a season and the episodes are coming out, or when the season is postponed and there won't be episodes coming out, there's this avalanche of communication across Twitter about why isn't it coming back? It's not coming back soon enough. When are we going to get the rest of the story in this series? So people seem to really love Insecure, which I can understand because I loved the YouTube series Misadventures of Awkward Black Girl. So of course I'm not surprised that Insecure is doing just such a wonderful job. Misadventures of an Awkward Black Girl is, again, a bit of a memoir for Issa Rae. Issa Rae, let me try to pronounce her name correctly. I believe it's Issa Rae. And it just tells, again, sort of her experiences living as a young creative, trying to put forth her vision for the entertainment that she wanted to see and the people that she wanted to have involved in that creative vision. Misadventure lays out some of the things that she ran across in her life as a creative, as a humorous person, who I think when people think of comedians, I believe they think of extroverts. I'm pretty sure there are plenty of examples of comedians who are introverts. I can't think of any right now, mind you, But I'm sure that there have been plenty of comedians who are essentially introverts, but just who have this comedic take or the ability to tell comedic stories about the things that they've encountered in their lives. And I think that's kind of what, or I understand that that's kind of what is happening in Awkward Black Girl. The next book up is, well, that escalated quickly, by Franchesca Ramsey. Franchesca Ramsey is another comedic, humorous YouTube creative who just kind of blew up through the content that she put out on YouTube. I believe that the first thing, if I'm not mistaken, was stuff, and I'm substituting stuff, white girls say to black girls, and it was just, I watched a lot of those, and it was very funny. A very funny take on microaggressions, really, that happen to black women every day. But she managed to tell a story about it, bring her attention to it, and make it funny all at the same time. And that's no small feat. Franchesca Ramsey also had a podcast called Last Name Basis. Last Name Basis was entertaining. I enjoyed it. I don't believe she's putting out any more content under Last Name Basis anymore. But if you go back and listen to the old podcast, I think you'll enjoy those because she is hilarious. She is a very funny person. She also was a writer, and she was in front of the camera on The Nightly Show, which should still be on television, but that's a whole other story. So she actually managed to secure a writing spot and in front of the camera spot on that show. And in addition to the podcast and her work on The Nightly Show, she has also been doing Decoded with MTV for quite a while. And Decoded, if you're not familiar with it, discusses weighty topics like racism, like microaggressions, like homophobia. And I've enjoyed the series because, of course, you can find the entire series on YouTube. Enjoy yourself, because you'll enjoy yourself and you'll learn something. And what could be better than that? The last book is not a memoir. It is a book that I read some of, a lot of, maybe half of years ago, and it is Women Who Run with Wolves by Clarissa Pinkola Estes. Hopefully I am pronouncing her name correctly. Clarissa Pinkola Estes. I read part of this book in the 2000s. I don't recall how I found out about it. Well, I worked in a bookstore for a long time, so that's probably how I ran across this book. Saw the book forever, finally decided, I think I checked it out of the library at some point, which is why I didn't finish it. I'm pretty confident of that right now. Checked it out of the library a couple of times. Maybe I got halfway through it. I really enjoyed it because the book, up to the point that I read it, examines these sort of archetypal myths and stories about women, especially older women, but younger, from girlhood to cronehood, I guess you could call it. Dr. Estes examines the myths and the stories that are told about women over this span of life, of our time here. The stories are popular. The stories are familiar to the Western canon. So I'm not saying that the stories don't come from other cultures, Eastern cultures, African culture, Latinx cultures. So if I'm not mistaken, some of those stories are told or examined in this book. And the book is over here, which is why I'm doing this. But so some of those stories are told and examined in this book. But these are stories that are familiar to, or should be familiar to, maybe familiar to most of us who are exposed to the Western mythos and Western storytelling. I really enjoyed, I think it's the Baba Yaga? I could be wrong. I think it's the Baba Yaga story. Her examination of it was eye-opening and intriguing. I enjoyed the way she was able to draw from the story the empowerment that is evident in how the crone lives, off by herself in the woods, self-sufficient. And that is if I'm referencing the correct story. If it's different, well, I'll find that out when I read it, and then when I do a review of the book, I'll just make the correction then. But if you know I'm not referencing the right story or the correct story, just let me know in the comments below. I have no problems with that. My intent is to finish, well, actually, I'm just going to start from the beginning and read the book to its conclusion. So this is going to take a while. This is not a fiction book. So it's not paced like a fiction book. It's actually sort of paced as I recall from when I read it, it's not paced like a fiction book. It is paced like a textbook. I don't mean that in a bad way, because she is analyzing the stories and sort of letting and telling you from the analysis of kind of what she's gleaned, the themes and the elements that she's gleaned from these historic myths and stories that have been told throughout the ages. Well, there you have it. 4 books with at least 2 things in common: that they were written by a woman and that they are all nonfiction. And actually 3 of them have memoir in common, and one is an examination of myths and stories told about women and the psychological analysis that Dr. Estes brings to bear on said stories. If you've read any of these books, let me know your thoughts in the comment. I don't have to worry about spoilers in this one because it's not, I don't know that you can spoil nonfiction books. So feel free to make any comment that you may like, and I'm going to put these books down because they are heavy, especially the last one. If you've read any of these books and you have something in particular that you'd like to share with me, with the community, please do so in the comments below. I'd really appreciate it. And I'd love to engage. I'd love to see what people feel about and think about these books. Thank you so much for joining me today. And remember, if you like this video, go ahead and leave me a like. If you're enjoying the content thus far, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. I'd really appreciate it. And if you'd like to be notified every time I post a new video, go ahead and ring the notification bell. Postscript: I will say that I bought all 4. I'm going to lift these heavy books up again. I will say that I got all of these books from Thrift Books. They are not a sponsor. However, that is where I got them. That's where I get a lot of my books nowadays since I started this channel. They're just a really good resource. In general, you will get a really decent to good to great used book. Now, you can also pay for the brand new price for a brand new book, but if you don't want to do that, especially if it's a backlist book, if you don't want to do that, you can look through Thrift Books and find pretty good prices. As far as I'm concerned, as far as I've seen, pretty good prices for backlist books that makes it easy to kind of grab those books that you wanted for a long time, except possibly the Harry Potter books, because for some reason those are really hard to find in good condition and with a cover. So if you don't have an independent bookstore that you like to shop at, which I'm all about that, please do go to your independent bookstore and try to find these backlist books. But if you don't have that, or if it's just a little pricey for you, try out Thrift Books. If that's still not going to work for you, try your local library. Remember, I am a big supporter of local libraries. I am a big supporter of everyone going out and utilizing your local libraries. They are there for a reason. They are a wonderful resource. Please, please, please go forth and utilize your local library. Okay, seriously, that's all I have for today. And remember, no matter what task you need to complete within your day, there is always time to read. Have a good day.